A vaccine is a substance used to stimulate the production of antibodies and provide immunity against one or several diseases, prepared from a causative agent of a disease, its products, or a synthetic substitute treated to act as an antigen without inducing the disease. So, how does a vaccine work? Vaccines are like a training course for the immune system. They prepare the body to fight disease without exposing it to the disease symptoms. When foreign invaders, such as bacteria or viruses, enter the body, immune cells respond by producing antibodies to attack it. And if the virus were to infect the body, there are now cells to fight against that. Today, smallpox has been eradicated by vaccines, saving 5 million lives annually. And polio could be next. Over 80% of the world's children are now being vaccinated against the polio virus, and the annual number of cases has been cut from 400,000 to 90,000 in just 10 years. Since 1988, the overall number of polio cases has decreased by 90%. Although these numbers are decreasing rapidly, recently some parents have chosen to abstain from vaccinations. Some of these parents are basing their decision on false information. In the 1990s, gastroenterologist Andrew Wakefield studied a possible link between vaccines and autism. He claimed that his research proved there is in fact a link. He published these findings in a well-respected British medical journal, causing vaccine rates in Britain to plummet. Wakefield purposely left out that he had been paid by attorneys seeking to file lawsuits against vaccine manufacturers. He also did not specify that the research had been conducted on only 12 children and that he had grossly exaggerated their disabilities. After this information was discovered, Wakefield's license was revoked and he formally retracted the study himself. To date, there has been no findings of any link between autism and any type of vaccination. Our presentation is investigating whether it would be ethical or not for the federal government or some other type of governing body to require mandatory vaccinations for all children to prevent serious and easily transferable illnesses. In the status quo, vaccines for some diseases are required in certain contexts, like attending school, daycares, and participating in other group activities. However, currently, parents have the option to opt out of vaccinating their child if it goes against their religious or philosophical beliefs, depending on the state they reside in. We are arguing that vaccines for serious and easily transferable diseases, such as measles, polio, diphtheria, and countless others, should be required for all children regardless of their beliefs to protect the community as a whole.
Although every person we interviewed was in support of mandatory vaccines, some anti-vaccination arguments are readily available on the internet and different social media platforms. Most of these arguments stem from religious beliefs and the belief that everyone should have the freedom to choose whether or not to vaccinate. We have investigated some of the most popular belief systems worldwide and have found no evidence that religion could be used as a reason to abstain from vaccination. Hinduism includes a high regard for life, dictating that we should do all we can to protect our lives and the lives of those around us. Vaccines do just that, protecting our own bodies from infection as well as protecting our neighbors and peers. Followers of Buddhism believe that serious diseases separate the body from the mind. Preventing disease means preventing this kind of disharmony within the body, which vaccines can achieve for many serious and deadly illnesses. Before modern medicine developed the vaccines we have today, Buddhist nuns would grind scabs taken from a person infected with smallpox into a powder, and then blow the concoction into the nostrils of a non-immune person to induce immunity. Judaism dictates that anyone who is able to save a life but fails to do so violates "you shall not stand idly by the blood of your neighbor." Some say that it is a sin to put these foreign substances in a body, but during a smallpox outbreak in 1785, a prominent rabbi said, "One who undergoes this treatment while still healthy, God will not consider it a sin. Rather, it is an act of eager religious devotion and reflects the commandment to be particularly careful of your well-being." The Catholic Church and other denominations of Christianity also strongly support vaccinations and make it a moral and ethical issue by stating that there would seem to be no proper grounds for refusing immunization against dangerous, contagious diseases, deeming it immoral to refuse vaccines. Adding something to the body, such as a vaccine, would not alter their belief that people are made in the image of God, because it is an attempt to preserve the body given to us. In addition to researching these religious groups, we consulted members of our family and the community to obtain more opinions on this controversial subject. Teen girls Liv and Claire both agreed that vaccines should be implemented in order to protect the community as a whole. At 16 years of age, Claire stated, Yes, vaccines are necessary because they go beyond just protecting the vaccinated individuals. If we have an option or a choice to protect ourselves against diseases and therefore others, we should take this opportunity. Congruently, 14-year-old Liv stated, "Yes, there are so many illnesses that can be prevented by vaccines. It doesn't make sense for people to not get them because vaccines protect the person receiving them and everyone around that person." Ed, a 53-year-old white male, stressed the financial implications of anti-vaccinated children in an interview, stating, "It is not ethical for parents to force their children to be susceptible to these diseases if they cannot make the decision for themselves. If people have diseases that could not have been prevented, then there is a cost associated to those who were to get sick from contact with those who are not vaccinated. Prolonged medical treatment for these diseases is expensive and could last a whole lifetime, which could end up being paid by taxpayers, which is completely avoidable." Each interviewee touched on taking into account the good of all, ultimately agreeing that requiring vaccinations at a federal level would protect the health of the community as a whole. 80-year-old and former nurse Rosemary stated in her interview, "How did we become such a nation of so much fear? Only in hindsight, maybe that the greed we see today instead of what is best for all the community has made us all mine and only mine." Like many others, Rosemary believes that anti-vaccination positions are selfish and do not take into account the health of everyone, which vaccines are intended to protect. Our argument is based in the philosophical system of utilitarianism. The beliefs of utilitarianism are based in the argument that actions are ethical if they benefit the majority. We believe that everyone should get vaccines across the board in order to protect the health of all. Many people's arguments against vaccines have insufficient ethical evidence to support them. These arguments should not be used so people can put their own and other children at risk from infectious diseases that are avoidable.
Kantianism emphasizes that the main goal of humanity is to achieve perfect happiness and virtue. According to our interpretations of his arguments, Kant could think that vaccines are not ethical because people are being used as a means to an end in order to eradicate preventable diseases. On the other hand, Kant could support vaccines as a universal law, so that people had optimal health in order to achieve perfect happiness and virtue. As long as we ensure that people's humanity is not compromised during the process, this universal law should be considered ethical under Kant's arguments.
The Aristotelian ethical approach is centered around determining the intermediate between excess and deficiency. In this context, deficiency would be allowing children to get sick because vaccines make you uncomfortable, while excess would be requiring less reliable vaccines like the flu. Aristotle also emphasizes our path to eudaimonia, which could be cut short if you are infected with a serious and possibly deadly illness. Regarding vaccines, there are four main categories that most medical professionals fall into. Most doctors are in between, not all completely for or against vaccines in all contexts, and believe either the selective or delayed vaccine routes. Selective, where all serious transferable diseases are vaccinated against. The diseases such as flu or tetanus shots are not vaccinated for unless requested. The other middle route is delayed vaccines, where the vaccines are spread out over time. Today, there are requirements for vaccinations in order to attend public schools. In Nebraska, some of the required vaccines fight against polio, measles, mumps, hepatitis B, and many others. At Creighton, students and their parents are not allowed to abstain from vaccinations for religious reasons. Students enrolled in health-related fields are required to have more extensive vaccination requirements because they will be interacting with patients. Recently, there have been outbreaks of diseases that were thought to be issues of the past. Within 2019 alone, there have been 626 reported cases of the measles reported in over 22 states. Measles was eliminated in the United States in 2000 thanks to extensive vaccination requirements of school districts. However, travelers returning to the U.S. from other countries brought the disease back, infecting unvaccinated children and adults that they came into contact with. This is just one serious but avoidable example as to why we believe there should be stricter requirements regarding vaccinations. Our utilitarian-based proposal would introduce a phenomenon called herd immunity. There are some cases, such as individuals going through treatments for certain cancers and other illnesses, when vaccinations could risk a serious compromise of their health. If everyone got vaccinated, with the exception of these cases, the population would be able to sufficiently fight against these diseases and stop the spread of them. On a wider scale, this plan could be mandated in countries all over the world, helping people who may not have access to the proper medical treatment to combat these illnesses. This would especially aid children and adults alike in third world countries where these diseases are still very widespread. As long as a single person remains infected or susceptible to any of these avoidable diseases, people in all countries are at risk.